Welcome to the Romanian River channel, and my first impressions of the Story Pack DLC for Stellaris, called Leviathans. Now, before we get on with showing what Leviathan changes, which is about 3 things over the current version of the game, which is Heinlein, we'll talk about what Heinlein brought to the table, because that way we can get a good idea what the 10 extra euros for Leviathan brings to your game. Now, Heinlein itself brought in a few extra graphical settings and tweaked a wee bit the graphical fidelity itself, so if you are a person who has the minimum requirements for the game or just underneath the minimum, you should keep this in mind, because while the vanilla 1.0 version could have probably run, now it might not actually be able to. But we're talking about rigs that are probably 6 to 7 years old by this point. Still worth mentioning. Oh, and at the current time there are a couple of graphical aberrations, at least with the lens flare, where you get weird flickering from the ships, you know, the flashing of the lens flare oddly. Granted, it could be weird viewing angles and stuff like that, but it's kind of disconcerting to have lens flares when you don't expect them. But the lens flare setting itself being on, with the required bloom setting because it needs it, does bring in a couple of extra feedback elements in terms of visuals. Like, for example, when you're looking at the pulsar system, you actually see the pulsation. You kind of notice when the beam sweeps around towards you. If I get the chance and I remember, I'll actually show you guys that. Aside from that, not much else has changed in terms of graphics. Kind of useful and kind of beautiful and nice to see in terms of pushing the game forward, not only in terms of features but in terms of visuals as well. Now let's move forward and load a game first, the one I've spent the most amount of time playing, because yeah, I poked around quite with a bit of a lot of things, to be honest. Because for the first time in about 2 months I got the chance to actually play the game and not much care about talking or other stuff. Now, in terms of differences Heinlein brings in, at the current stage there are, I believe, 3 fallen empires. This one over here, which are holy guardians. They basically do not want you to touch, where is it? Oh my god, they actually colonized it. Or did they? No, they did not. They weren't that stupid. They don't want you to touch that, or else they'll hit you with a war deck. And they are much more responsive in terms of when you piss them off. These guys, which are into defending other species and have a preserve where they keep individuals safe from extinction, basically. I believe one of these races are also from the, how should I put this, the digitized data bank you can find in one of the exploration results. And you also have these guys, which are hell-bent on keeping things the way they like them. Of these 3, these guys awakened first. Then these guys awakened when a endgame crisis struck. Let's actually show that. Oh, and keep in mind how these guys look at the current stage. If I'm not mistaken. Yep. Look at this. Now, let's fast forward a wee bit to, let's say, here. It's tag debug for a very important reason. I'll get into that in a moment. Now, remember how this guy looked? Things have changed quite massively since then. These guys awoke and decided to take them apart piecemeal, basically. And at the current stage, they're a wee bit plastered, so to say. They're barely holding on. And the unbidden coming in, which caused these guys to awaken, has certainly not helped their plight. Now, the one thing I noticed, these guys are pretty much independent. They are doing their own things, they do not give a royal fuck about anybody else. These guys, however, within a couple of years, joined the Federation, which is called the Star Entente, if I'm not mistaken, in this game. Let's just be sure. Yep, Star Entente. Which kind of brings in a rather important possibility. The War in Heaven is a specific Leviathan only event, which is two awakened empires going to war with each other. But this hints at the fact that they might go to war with each other by proxy, basically having a, let's say, space Serbia committing a act of aggression against space Austro-Hungary, and Austro-Hungary declaring war on them, and then putting in Russia for the hell of it. Kind of an interesting possibility, a chain War in Heaven type event. Besides that point, the one thing I can mention, which is aggravating as all hell, is that a patch bug that cropped up in, I think, June or July of this year is still around, even though they supposedly hotfixed it, which is the one that if you get vassalized, as I got by these guys, you can get sometimes the inability to declare independence, which is a big issue considering they eventually want to assimilate you. I had to force it via a debug feature, which is the yes man debug option. With yes man, you basically force them to accept, regardless of opinion, whichever diplomatic option you give them. And the yes man is this one. Use this if your playthrough bugs out. Then you can declare independence even if they don't want you to do so. Aside of this smart smart solution for an annoying issue, there are also the issue that if you haven't played Stellaris in a long time but had a game you really were looking to get back to, don't patch the Heinlein. It'll break the save. It broke my save for the Adeptus Mechanicus playthrough, which means I have to restart that one. And I'll restart it with mods and Heinlein and Leviathans. And also it broke every mod that was compatible. Some of them are compatible by proxy because they are aesthetic stuff that hasn't changed yet, whereas marginally compatible because the aesthetic stuff like the lens flares that got put in don't interact weirdly with the mod itself. Now, outside of those things, we also have enclaves like these guys, or where were they? I believe, no, not here. Here. Yes, here. These guys are artists. You can contact them. Come on. Why don't I have the ability to contact them? Ah, there we go. No, this is the exchange actually. Not the exchange, the enclave. Huh. Well, this is new. Possibly the debug actually broke that. I have no clue. I could contact them quite normally up until this point. Though it could also be linked to the fact that I held a artistic carnival within the whole of my empire. And unlike the previous 2 times that I did that, the last time they decided to start stealing stuff and I lost about 500 minerals and 500 energy credits. It could also be linked to that and them not wanting to risk it. But it's kind of weird, considering I have plus 100. In any case, they offer that option, the option to be a patron for 25 energy credits and minerals per month for about 10 years, which has the random chance of giving you a special building, which, if I'm not mistaken, I put on Terra. Yes, this one, the Ministry of Culture, if I'm not mistaken, which gives you a lot of benefits. And it kind of helps a wee bit with dealing with both aliens, slaves or otherwise, and also I do believe synthetics. And yes, I was that crazy and made synthetics fully sentient and fully members of my society. If I'm not mistaken, I still have a leader in that regard. Yep, there she is. The synthetic accord thing, which makes them very unlikely, well, actually impossible to rebel against you, like for example is happening over here. They're friendly now. You don't get so many issues with rebellions. The specific one, I think, triggers the accord more readily after you put them both at you get both the synthetic AI research, which is labeled as dangerous, plus give them full citizen rights via the edicts. Where is it? Here and here. These are no longer available to the accord. Once you give them this, you also kind of need to research, I believe, this is my own opinion. Come on, where are you? Oh, we went a bit too back. Shouldn't be around here. Basically, the ability to have society, there we go. I was looking at physics. Man, I'm such an idiot. AI leaders. Once you get that, it's kind of probable you're gonna get the accord itself, because the accord triggered almost immediately after I got the respective technology. I also got this, which is labeled dangerous technology for anybody who's never actually used jump drives. It's labeled dangerous because it can draw in the unbidden towards you and trigger that. And also do note, I've seen it, there are no limits to endgame crises, though some can resolve themselves quite easily because, as anybody knows, the AI revolts are supposed to be an endgame crisis, but we also have the unbidden over here, and they're almost simultaneous too. Could be a difference with Heinlein. I've never seen it before. Though granted, I've rarely breached this level. The last time I've played this much into a single game I was doing it for the first impression video of Stellaris 1.0. Maybe then I got lucky. Aside of that, aside the issues with the debugs, aside of the save issues, enclaves being what they are, which is useful in strategic or tactical terms, because some enclaves are basically hostile to everybody and you can just use them as a choke point, and with the strategic side you can just use them to either get strategic resources, which in this case is spice. I would like Paradox to actually have this cycle through a set of rare resources, not just be one. This is a kind of a drawback in my opinion. It's only ever one. Granted, it could be something you really need, or it could be something utterly useless. That's why I wanted to cycle through more than one option. And the energy credits and minerals are quite useful. If you find yourself in a war, in a pinch, you need minerals or energy credits, and you have a surplus of either of the other ones. This is about the result of me playing for about 10 to 15 hours. It is by no means a conclusive overview of the Leviathans story pack itself, because there's a lot of things to see and a lot of things to do. But for my part, with the Heinlein patch and with the Leviathan story pack DLC on top, I was not bored one moment in this game. And I suspect you won't be quite easily either, because, for example, I kind of think I cocked up with this here because there's a sphere orbiting here, and I chose one of the options which was more aggressive, and since then nothing's happened. I'm rather curious what could happen. And the RNG nature of the game itself brings a lot to the table in terms of possibilities. The Leviathans DLC itself throws another extra variable in there, with the events, with the Leviathans themselves, with everything else. The one thing I really want Paradox to change, or at least enhance with the next major patch or even DLC, even if it's paid, is simply put, give us more bloody galaxy sizes and galaxy shapes. I would dance on a hot plate for more types of galaxies, and let's say 2,000 or 3,000 huge galaxies. Aside of this, they are at least tweaking and refining this, because they added this, and this, which are extra options for people who want either easier starts, easier games overall, because with less advanced neighbors you can bully them more easily, and turning off endgame crises can just basically make sure you don't get raffle stomped right as you're winning. But yeah, the Leviathans DLC itself, well worth it if you like Stellaris at the current stage, or at least liked it with 1.2.1. With 1.3 it actually got a wee bit better. It's a recommended purchase. It'll enhance things, it'll give you more to worry about, it'll give you more to have fun with. For anybody that kind of wants Stellaris to be a bit more enhanced in terms of, let's say, having leader bloodlines in the actual sense, or having monarchies have actual bloodlines in terms of monarchs, and other such enhancements, the Leviathan DLC itself, and more importantly the Heinlein patch, which is free, points to the fact that Paradox is listening and it's improving not only in terms of feature sets and enjoyment of the game proper, but how you interface and how easy it is to get in the game, which is quite good. For my part, yeah, I enjoyed the patch, I enjoyed the DLC, and to be honest, I enjoyed the direction Stellaris is taking. With mods, propping things up which aren't yet improved by the developers, it is a very enjoyable experience. Thank you for watching, and until next time, BAFTA!